We'll wait one more minute. But while we're waiting, if you have any thoughts you want to share in chat about the day so far, I would love to hear any feedback.
Or at least if I can add while we wait, if people can put in the chat where they're from and how long they've been a supervisor.
Great idea. Thanks. Oopsie. Go back. And I'm having internet issues, so I apologize in advance if something comes up. Of course, today I never have internet issues, but okay. And Nancy, I'm making you a co-host, and Matt's a co-host as well. So, and we are recording. So I guess it's 11:10. I'll let you respond to Matt's question, and then we'll get started. 5 years, 8 years, year two.
Lots of experienced supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Tuck it right off there into the vacuum cleaner.
Oh, whoopsie. Make sure to mute yourself if you're not talking or sharing something. All right, I'll go ahead and get started. Um, Welcome. We're happy you're here with us today. So I'm Lisa Sullivan, and I'm here at UC Davis with my colleagues. If you want to introduce yourselves, Matt and Nancy.
Sure, I'm Nancy Tsen. I'm also at UC Davis with both Lisa and Matt, and it's wonderful to be here with all of you today.
Yeah, echoing that. Hey everyone, Matt Wallace, and I guess just for context, so I supervise primarily single subject math candidates at UC Davis.
Yes, and Nancy and I are both in the multiple subjects program. So just what we're hoping to share today are some of our goals. Is just we have we'll tell you more about the data we're looking at, but we have feedback from our candidates or novice teachers regarding what they really want to celebrate or highlight about mentoring that they've received from their mentor teachers. So we're going to share some highlights from what they've talked about or written in letters. And then we also want to connect to some prior research, what we know about mentoring practices that seem to be most meaningful. And then we're going to share some themes from our own data from our candidates. And main part, our main goal of the workshop is that we want to kind of brainstorm how we might use this information that we've gathered to support both mentor teachers, but also sort of the triad, how supervisors might use this information. So we want to start with a quick Menti on what you think makes an ideal mentor teacher. So, what are some of the qualities, or what are some of the things you would say are really important for mentors to do, or ways they can work with their candidates or the student teachers they're working with? So, if you have a chance to, and then I will go ahead and share responses once we get some of those. Patience. Okay, I'll go back here. Hopefully, let me know when if you still need that slide, let me know.
Put the link in the chat for those of you who would like to just click on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so let me go back to the slide. All right. So we have patience, being authentic, being flexible, a couple flexible comments. And you can vote if there's a favorite here. I'm not exactly sure how I enabled voting, but I don't know how you vote. Empathy, connecting to resources, being approachable, encouraging creativity. I like that. Modeling, willingness to learn alongside, accommodating, sense of humor, quite a few patient comments, sharing their thinking in real time, listening, couple of listenings. I know there's a way that I can combine. It's supposed to be able to do themes for us, but this is great. Thank you. So we have flexibility, modeling, co-planning, patience, encouraging creativity, and anything else you want to highlight, Matt or Nancy?
No, it's making me think a little bit about the wide variety of roles that a mentor teacher
Mhm.
in the ways in which they support our teacher candidates. So thank you.
Yeah, being open-minded and listening. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. That's going to be important as we move into kind of talking about mentoring practices that have been identified. So I'll turn it over to Nancy.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So we wanted to start off with sharing the following quote as a way of framing this session around mentoring teaching practices. So study after study shows that experienced and newly certified teachers alike see clinical experience, i.e. student teaching, as a powerful, sometimes the single most powerful component of teacher preparation. And so really the motivation behind our time together is to share the perspectives of some of our UC Davis teacher candidates, as Lisa shared, and really to highlight the particular mentoring practices they found powerful during their clinical experience. So we'll start off with some background on what we know about mentor teachers. So, and what we mean by mentor teachers here are the mentors that our teacher candidates are paired with when they are carrying out their field work experiences. And so sometimes they might be referred to as a resident teacher or as a cooperating teacher. So we know that mentor teachers play a critical role in the preparation of teacher candidates, and that the ways in which a mentor teacher guides and supports a student teacher is really critical to their success. We also know that teacher candidates find their time working in classrooms alongside their mentor teacher to be the most beneficial and influential part of their teacher preparation program. And finally, we know that this time in their field placements and the time our teacher candidates spend with their mentor teachers plays a significant role in shaping their knowledge, their future practices, their beliefs around what it means to be a teacher. And we'll go to the next slide, please. So while the research, though, is really clear about the critical role that a mentor teacher plays and how influential their practices are in the development of a teacher candidate, there are still uneven experiences in how preparation programs support and prepare their mentor teachers. And it would be really useful to have a clearer sense and a more nuanced understanding of the specific practices that mentor teachers are utilizing to support their teacher candidates, both as a way of supporting, but also advancing the influential work that mentors are doing in their classrooms. And finally, studies don't often center the perspectives of teacher candidates when it comes to mentoring practices. And I'm now thinking about this in light of Dr. Shiz's keynote this morning, how bringing in the teacher candidate's perspective is not just a way of gaining insight into what they find valuable, but it's also a way of making space for their humanity in this relationship.
All right, thanks. I'll take it up from here. So from the research and the literature that Nancy mentioned, as well as other literature like the citation you see below, there have been identified six mentoring practices that are thought of as extremely important in order for teacher candidates or novice teachers to have a high quality student teaching or field practicum experience. Those six practices you see there on the slide. But what I'd like to do now is invite you to click on the link I just put into the chat, which will send you to a PDF that explains in a bit more detail what each of these six practices entails. So we'll give everyone some time, let's say a couple of minutes to read through, and then we'll invite you to a breakout room where you get a chance to talk through some of these practices. And some of the questions we'll invite you to chat about in breakout rooms. You can see they're on the screen. But right now, I'll mute myself, give everyone some quiet time just to read these six mentoring practices from the PDF. All right, I know that wasn't a great deal of time, but hopefully gave you a little bit of time anyways to look through some of those practices. And now I'll invite all of you to a breakout room. I think that's going to be roughly about 4 of you per room to chat about the questions that you see there in the chat. So which mentoring practices do you think are more or less valuable for novice teachers? And what might be missing from these six practices, or maybe another practice that you think belongs there but isn't? So here comes your invitation, an opportunity for you all to chat. Suppose I should have also said, take a moment to introduce yourselves as well.
I can broadcast that.
Well, I'm sure it probably goes without saying, but do we want to pause the recording for this
Yeah, thank
time?
you.
You didn't give us a countdown.
I was gonna ask that. I was like, did you give us a countdown? We were
Oh, sorry. Oh no. Okay, I'll work on that. There's a lot of atrophy in my Zoom skills, which is a good thing if you ask me, because that means I'm meeting more in person. But anyways, welcome back, everyone.
Always.
Sorry, sorry for the abrupt closure. Hopefully that time allowed you all to talk through some of the, if not all of the mentoring practices that you have there. And I encourage you, if you didn't get a chance to get through all of them, to continue to read and keep that document as a resource. So the link is in the chat, but I believe also this document will be in our presenter notes or folder rather for part of this session. So on the next slide, one thing we did with these practices, one thing that we've done in our program for the past 6 or so years is we've had a mentor teacher award, or rather a mentorship award for mentor teachers. And how it works is towards the end of the year, we invite all teacher candidates throughout the program, if they're so inclined, to nominate their mentor teacher for this mentorship award. In order to make a nomination, each novice teacher is asked to write a letter, no more than 1 page, that, quote, makes a compelling case for why their mentor is deserving of the award. Importantly, that's all they're asked to do. They're not asked to speak to anything other than that. So whatever they think is important, that's what they get to write down about why they think their mentor teacher is deserving of the award. It is totally voluntary. No novice teacher is required to submit a nomination if they don't like. And after all letters are submitted, then we have faculty in the program who review the letters to identify both a single subject and a multiple subject awardee for the mentorship award. And as part of that award, and everyone is aware that it comes with a cash prize. And a plaque, and also we try on all our social media channels to blast out how awesome our mentor teachers are for winning the award. So what we did with this is, on the next slide, please, is we took the letters from 2002 to 2022 to 2024, and we looked through them to see, well, what's going on here? What are some mentor practices that are really valued? So there are 55 letters total. And about half are from multiple subjects, and the other half come from all single subject novice teachers. And just to be clear, in our program, a single subject includes ag, English language arts, science, social studies, and math. And of these 55 letters, teachers from first all the way through 12th grade are represented in this data set. So here's what we did with the data. The first thing we did, that is Lisa, Nancy, and I, we looked at these letters and specifically looked for moments when the novice teachers were referencing one or more of these 6 practices. So anytime we saw a reference to a practice, we would code that. And then after we did this separately, we also did some double or some of us looked at multiple letters. And then we made sure that we had a shared understanding of what these codes were. And anytime there was a discrepancy, we would duke it out. I mean, we would discuss it until we had a consensus on what the code should actually be. After we did that for 1 year's worth of letters, and we had we calibrated, I guess you could say. Then we moved beyond that to the other years of letters, and we coded. And then after we did all of our coding for practices, we looked at each practice to see what common themes existed. So with all the practices for co-teaching, for all the coding for co-teaching, what are some common themes in co-teaching, for example? Or for modeling the work of teaching, what are some common themes that our novice teachers said for all the times in their letters they talked about co-teaching? Importantly, there might be, in some cases, novice teachers can reference a practice multiple times in a letter. So that might mean that you would see more codes than letters. So there might, say, for example, if I'm writing about my mentor teacher and I talk about modeling teaching in 5 different places, then that would be 5 codes. So there could be potentially more codes than letters. There could also be fewer codes because there might be novice teachers who did not mention, for example, someone modeling the work of teaching. So in the next slide, and I'll hand it over to Lisa to share the results.
Yes, thank you, Matt. So based on that process and our coding, these were the practices of those 6 that you discussed earlier that surfaced most frequently in the letters. So pre-brief and debrief, there were 37 codes related to that in the letters. Modeling the work of teaching, there were 36 codes. Co-teaching, 33 codes. And then we also noticed that sort of emotional support, self-care of candidates came up frequently as well. That's not one of those practices specifically that's highlighted in what you just reviewed. And as Matt mentioned, some things fell into more than one category. So these were the things that sort of came up most often. So we want to just share some examples of the types of comments that our novice teachers mentioned related to those different practices. So under pre-brief and debrief, there was this idea of regular and embedded debrief routines, sort of not just doing it catch as catch can, but having a real structure to it. So here are some comments. So we met at lunch nearly every day. She always debriefed after lessons. After each lesson, we would meet to discuss. And then another sort of sub theme is pre-briefing and co-planning to build confidence. So giving pointers before a lesson, regularly consulting, checked in, so lots of ongoing guidance. And then under this idea of pre-brief and debrief was the idea of personalized feedback and constructive feedback. So really sharing constructive criticism, pointing out strengths, and then also in the pre-brief and debrief was this idea of encouragement of self-reflection and setting some goals. So helping, she was always asking me to reflect on my practices. It made me a better teacher. She always elicits my thoughts. Um, the focus was never on her perception, but on asking me to think deeply about my teaching. So just want to mention that as we're sharing these, we're going to ask you when we're done kind of breaking down these practices to talk together about one of these that you find, kind of resonates with you or that you think about in your own practice. So I'm going to turn it over to Nancy.
Okay, so and under the practice of modeling the work of teaching, there were kind of 5 categories that came forward. One that kind of bubbled to the top was the idea of relationships and classroom culture. So the ways in which the mentor teacher modeled how to build relationships both with and among their students and establish a positive classroom culture. So one of the quotes from a teacher candidate is that their mentor teacher's goal is to be culturally responsive and respectful of her students' identities and needs is infectious. She also illuminated how to effectively handle challenging behaviors in the classroom, digging deeper to understand and support our students' learning and social needs. Moreover, she has illustrated how to support students with patience and understanding while maintaining high expectations for their growth. Collaboration was another category. So how their mentor teacher modeled how to collaborate across different stakeholders, including both colleagues, administrators, and family caregivers. So this example focuses more specifically on the colleagues at the school site. So collaborating well with colleagues, whether they be grade level colleagues, the resource specialist, the behavior specialist. The mentor teacher never hesitated to ask others questions in order to maximize her teaching. Equity, advocacy, and leadership was another category. So the ways that our teacher candidates observed their mentors enacting these practices. An example is how one mentor teacher helped to establish the ethnic studies curriculum at their school site, inspiring students to make deep and impactful change. Another example was the way a mentor teacher fought every evening at meetings related to their union. So ensuring teachers were able to keep their contract that affords them healthcare, quality pay, and fair working conditions. And then the last 2 categories, both that were cited by teacher candidates, were adaptive and reflective teaching and lifelong learning, which in some ways kind of go hand in hand. So teacher candidates really appreciated seeing when their mentor teachers modeled reflectiveness and then made changes to their practices based on these reflections. As one student teacher said, she doesn't hesitate to change the course of her own instruction by trying different approaches in order to better reach the students. And then also teacher candidates appreciated seeing their mentors modeling how to be a lifelong learner. So staying up to date on the newest educational research, implementing them into practice, taking lessons from the curriculum, but combining that with new ideas and formats in service of students in differentiation.
So with respect to co-teaching, there were 3, I think, most common themes that popped up. And so recall that co-teaching was referenced about 30 times. So this first category with 15 comments, in other words, about half of the times that our novice teachers mentioned co-teaching, they spoke specifically about being respected, their ideas in particular being respected, and that comes through in the quote that you see here. X, placeholder for teacher name, that's the math teacher in me, I guess. X always treated me like her colleague. My ideas and contributions in the classroom were consistently valued. And so what you don't see here, but what came up in some of the other quotes was the idea that the novice teacher, their input was solicited. So it wasn't teacher saying, here's what we're going to do, but rather it was the mentor saying, well, these are the things that we're going to teach. Do you have any ideas about how we might go about doing that? And then those ideas weren't dismissed or marginalized, but rather they were taken up and included. They figured out ways to make or incorporate those ideas into the classroom practice as part of that collaborative work. Another theme that came up this time, just under 15, 13 comments. But again, that's almost about half of the time that our novice teachers were referencing co-teaching. They talked about being positioned not so much as an assistant, but rather as a colleague, as a co-teacher. And that comes through in the quotes that you see. Here's one: since day one, X has made me feel incredibly welcome in her classroom and made sure that I was seen and treated as a teacher just as much as she is. So from the very first day, our novice teachers are being positioned not as the assistant, not as a student teacher, but rather this is somebody else. This is just another teacher in the classroom who's going to help for the rest of the year, for however long the candidate or novice teacher rather might be with us. And the last theme that came up was encouragement of experimentation and innovation. So on many occasions, our candidates really appreciated not feeling constrained by what was going on in the classroom, or maybe constrained by that shadow that the mentor teachers, sometimes our novice teachers feel like they're behind or in the shadows of their mentor. But in this case, the mentor is really encouraging the novice teachers to try new things, try the things that they're learning in the program, and experiment and see how things go. And that's part of the work that they do, I think, with some of the debriefing and the feedback, is helping them after they try these new things out, is thinking through how to refine them or further improve upon the things that they're doing. In addition to these, another thing was the self-care that Lisa mentioned earlier.
Yes. Am I taking this one? Okay. So self-care, this idea of really, supporting personally when they're going through things. So, am I muted? Am I not coming through?
I think you're coming through now.
I'm not. Okay. Okay. Sorry, my internet is being very difficult. Okay. So self-care. Hopefully you can hear me. So this was another category that, as we mentioned, isn't specifically one of those six, but the idea really came forward in 14 comments, supported student teachers when they were going through difficult times. So mental health issues is mentioned here in the example, or suffering from a loss in their family. This particular student teacher talks about mentor teacher, their own experience with loss. Another theme that came up in this category was recognition of the whole person beyond just sort of the teaching realm. So X reminded me that I am more than a student and a teacher, but a person who lives their own life outside of the demands of teaching. X cares about my health and wellness, and outside of the classroom, X offered invaluable support in maintaining a healthy work-life balance, recognizing these aspects of our student teachers' lives, because they are going through a lot. And encouragement speaks to more when our student teachers were doubting themselves. So there were several times where I questioned if I was cut out for teaching, but X never stopped believing in me. And that encouragement to express and share. So what we want to do now is to have you take a few minutes to kind of engage with what we just shared. I can drop the slides, a link, pick a breakout room, or Matt, do you want to do the same breakout rooms and have people just talk about whichever one of these
Uh,
practices they find most
well,
relevant?
either I was in the middle of naming the breakout room, so
Oh,
people,
good. Okay. Thank you,
but
Matt.
I just need you to stall or tell a joke for maybe 30 more.
Okay. Yes. No, I'll keep talking about it. So Matt's setting up breakout rooms with these four different main sort of categories that were highlighted by our candidates. And what we would love to hear is, we're thinking about how we might use this information, these examples, because one of the things we noticed is in talking with our mentor teachers, we share general practices with them, but we don't have a lot of specific examples. So thinking about how we might use these more nuanced examples to help our mentors, but also help us as supervisors. So I think that's the goal here, just kind of thinking through pre-brief and debrief, modeling the work of teaching, co-teaching, and self-care, and how we can support our mentor teachers in doing these things. So I'll leave it to Matt to open
Yes.
breakout room.
All right, love the synergy. Thank you, Lisa. So in a moment, I'll open up the breakout rooms. So there's 40 people here, not wanting to have too many people in one breakout room. So there's 2 breakout rooms per practice. So for example, there's a pre-brief and debrief 1 and a pre-brief and debrief 2. So I invite you to try to balance the numbers. If you find yourself in a room where there's 10 people, maybe you can, half of you can elect to go to the second breakout room with the same topic. Hopefully all that makes sense, but if not, I'm happy to try to clarify. Anyhow, here's an invitation for all of you to choose your breakout room and then begin discussions.
Let's go.
And if there's a particular room that you'd like to be in, we can also pop you into that as well, if that would be helpful.
Will you put me in pre-brief and debrief, please?
You got it. That, just to be clear, that's Patty who said that?
Patty, yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Anyone else want to be put in a breakout room? Sandy, yes.
The pre-brief and debrief also, please.
Okay.
Me too, Susie Reynolds.
Okay, I'll put you in there.
Oh,
Thank you.
Lisa.
Put you in the second one. Whoopsie. Let's see. Susie, did I put you there? No. Let's see. Assigned to, I'm going to put you in the second one. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Gabrielle? Okay.
Self-care for me, please.
Okay, self-care.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
And with Peter Lewis, debrief for debrief and room.
Okay.
Oh, and I will pause the recording.
Okay.
There you go. Welcome back, everyone. I'm hoping that one or more of you would be willing to share some of the things that were discussed in your breakout rooms. Anything at all that stood out to you, that was interesting, that was no.
Matt, if I could, I'd like to share from our breakout room. It was on
Wonderful, please do.
Yes, it's on self-care. So the consensus was that if we don't work with our candidates on how important this is, because they will burn out. If they don't burn out in student teaching, they're going to burn out in the first 1 or 2 years. We see the attrition rate of that. So each one of us shared how we really emphasize that this is a priority. Yes, your program's important, but you have to take care of yourself in one way or the other, whatever that might be. Going to a movie, just even Denise said, even taking 1 hour for yourself. And Mary talked about setting boundaries as a student teacher. Don't stay after school 5, 6 hours doing things that could be done later.
Yeah, great point. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else care to share?
I just wanted to find out, because you asked that question right here, was there anything that surprised you about what we noticed? That it came up in discussion that in our group that there was no connection between the coursework of the program that they were in and the mentor teacher lessons that was discussed. I'm not saying it didn't happen, it just wasn't brought out in the data that was collected. So if I, as the student teacher, wanted to utilize a technique or a strategy or whatever that I had learned in a course, and I bring that to the mentor teacher, how receptive are they to um, helping me implement that? They may be very familiar with it and they probably used it and modeled it, but then how do you help the student teacher put that into the lesson effectively? So did you collect any data on that?
No, that's an interesting point. And a couple thoughts about that. We did not. So these letters were very open-ended. And one of the things I'll say in the next slide, though we don't have to go there yet, whoever's managing the slides, is that it's not clear whether the things in these letters were included because these are what the novice teachers really valued, or they included these things in these letters because they thought somebody else, in other words, the award judges valued them. So it's hard to say why these things were included in these letters for sure. So I think that's an important point to make. Nevertheless, in these letters, they did not talk about um, the things that they might have been learning in their programs and seeing that being implemented specifically. But I do think that there were moments where some of those things were mentioned. Specifically, I think in the modeling of teaching, some of the things that were brought up involved the advocating for equity, which is, at least in our program anyways, a big theme. Relationships, I would argue, is also relationship building is also a theme in the program. So they might not be talking specifically about universal design for learning, for example, but one could argue that that is part of advocating for equity. So maybe they're not using specific things, but they're talking more broadly about some of these things. So yeah, it's interesting that these things might not have been brought up, and that could be because of the constraints. It could be because of a whole host of different things that we're not quite 100% sure about. But great point. I also think it's important to note that, and one of the things I've been thinking about is, so we started this whole session asking about what are some of the things that we think are important for mentor teachers, and that might be very different from what our teacher candidates think are really the most important. So sharing this information might be really important for our mentors or mentor teachers to hear, because they might be thinking much like us, that it's patience and it's joy and it's these sorts of things. And I'm not saying those aren't important, but what might be more important to the teacher candidate is not the patience, but maybe learning more about, or just having that ongoing and regular feedback, or seeing how we collaborate with our, see how mentor teachers collaborate with their colleagues, how they collaborate with the para-educators in the room, how they collaborate with their grade level team, how they collaborate with other sorts of things. So things that have nothing to do with the instruction or the methods classes per se, are the things that might be really standing out to our teacher candidates. It might be really important for our mentors to hear about because they might not be realizing that those are the things that are really valued.
Matt, I want to piggyback on what you just said, because I was looking at the mentor practices, the overview that you shared in the beginning. And in our first breakout session, the one thing that I mentioned was it seems like these practices make the mentor teachers seem like the sage on the stage, and the student teachers kind of have to just adapt to whatever the curriculum or the feedback or whatever it is that the mentor teachers are giving. And the agency seems to be missing. And I was thinking, as you and Nancy and Lisa were presenting, like you could rewrite the whole entire document. These are the feedback that the student teachers are really looking for when it comes to co-teaching or co-planning or briefing. Those are the things that they're really valuing, not what Stanilis is saying here, or whoever this person is. I'm so sorry. But yeah, and I appreciate like the actual quotes that you're giving because it seems to resonate, like the things that we think should be a part of mentoring, they're not really touching, like you're saying.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So I'm sorry, I'm noticing the time, and I think we're supposed to end at 12:10, and definitely don't want to cut into your lunchtime. So a couple things. I mentioned the first bullet point, so I'll jump to the second point. While we might not know why these novice teachers were including these things in these letters, it is nevertheless important and clear that these are things that our novice teachers are noticing. They're noticing when the feedback is given, how it's being given, and what sort of feedback they're getting. They're noticing how they're being positioned in the classroom, and they're noticing how their ideas are being received or not. They're also noticing way more than instruction. So while we might be thinking about how are we going to deliver this content, or how are we going to use, I don't know, number talks, or how are we going to represent pictorially these things, they're noticing how we might be collaborating with colleagues and how we're building community in the classroom. And they're also noticing things that go well beyond the day-to-day work in classroom teaching, that self-care that's also important so we don't burn out. So some other ideas that we have about how this information might be useful for us as supervisors, because we're not the mentor teachers in this space, is that we can relay this information to mentor teachers. Because again, they might not necessarily be aware, or they might be thinking that their work or their energy is best suited or best dedicated elsewhere, when we don't know. So you all might be familiar with the requirement that the CTC has for all new mentors to go through some sort of training. So this is the kind of information that might be really valuable for new mentors to learn and hear about in that training, and maybe something to embed as part of that work. Or if you have regular ongoing orientation meetings, or maybe it's just regular email communications that's going on, to remind or help mentor teachers learn about the things that are going to be particularly important and valuable. And it might be timed based on how things are going in the program. Like self-care, for example, you might want to really blast that out or emphasize that when students are in the middle of TPAs, because we all know that's a very stressful time in the journey to get one's credential. Also, if we as supervisors know that we're working with a mentor teacher who is really good at some of these things, we can leverage that. If we know that this mentor is really good about collaborating with the paraeducators, for example, we might really want to make sure that our candidates spend time observing those things, taking note of those things, talking about those things when we debrief or have pre-briefs with our teacher candidates, to really push the issue so that our teacher candidates will get the most out of those things. Because sometimes those things are happening, and there's so many different things to notice in a classroom that our teacher candidates might not be noticing or looking for those things. So we really want to focus our teacher candidates or novice teachers' observations and energy on certain things if we know those sorts of things might be happening in the classroom, and they're going to be valued and taken up. Last but not least, there are some, I think, useful information that's shared in there, particularly as it relates to the feedback that we might offer, and also experimentation or innovating things. So we might want to take advantage of that as supervisors. when we work with our candidates to debrief or pre-brief. So I'm thinking, for example, with experimenting or trying new things on a regular basis, I might just, as part of my debrief, ask, so what's something new that you want to try out? And how might I be able to support you in that effort to really encourage them to experiment and to innovate. And also making sure that I think this is brought up at least in one, if not multiple sessions I've been in today, is to not necessarily start off with a question with, so how did today go? Or what went well today? But really take some time to prioritize self-care. How are you doing? How are things going before we get into the nitty-gritty of the lesson and all the things that might be going on that we want to talk about with that. Anyhow, so I think that there's also some things that we can value too, and why all this might be important. Well, these quotes here are just cherry-picked from a variety of different letters that really speak to how much our novice teachers have to gain from the things that our mentor teachers are providing. So you don't have to read all these things or these quotes, but if you did, you'd realize that all this is critically important to help support and make sure that our novice teachers are getting a high-quality field practicum experience.
Thank you, Matt. And then we created a folder in this workshop's folder, sort of a subfolder. If you have, because I'm sure there's a lot of knowledge and experience and expertise in this area in this session. If you have, I dropped in, we have something, a guiding document about co-teaching that we share with our mentor teachers about different models of co-teaching and what they look like, because sometimes they hear that phrase and they're not sure, what do you mean by that? What would that look like? So if you have resources that you think we could all benefit from, it'd be great if you could drop them in our shared folder for this workshop. And then, yeah, just opening it up for final thoughts or questions. If anybody has questions or comments before we take our break.
I just want to mention that it's really helpful as a supervisor to get any input from mentors we can. So I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm
I
glad.
have one question.
Mhm.
Matt, you mentioned the training that a mentor teacher has to have. Is that something new?
Relatively, yeah. I think within the last 5 years, I want to say, it is for all new mentor teachers to your program. So those who you've worked with in the past, I believe, are grandfathered in. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but in other words, they don't have to do the trainings. But if there's someone new that you're bringing in to mentor the candidates you're working with, yeah, those 10 hours are a expectation per the CTC.
I have a question. The research of the data gathering, that's something you would continue to do?
Indeed, yes. We have more than just the letters that we used and shared with you all today. And we continue on. This hopefully will be an ongoing thing that will carry on for as long as the program does.
And hopefully you'll present it next year.
Yes, I don't know if it'll be new. Maybe, but yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering if the trends will change.
Ah, good point. Yeah. When they do, that's when you'll hear from us again. Okay.
Well, thanks everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. I know it's been a long morning so far. And Karen, are you here? I don't know if you wanted to share. Hi, Karen. Karen has a role in the mentorteachers.org website. So just wanted to highlight your work and that we really drew from what you've put together there to help us think about this feedback.
Or from our 120 teacher candidates we followed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, through the fieldwork. Yeah, I will connect with you. I loved the work you presented here. I think that is what Evelyn also said, that is would be a very, very valuable addition to the website to really have this part what you have add to the mentor teachers practices. Yeah, so let's talk about it. Thank you so much for your session.
Glad you were here. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I think I dropped in the chat the links for the next sessions after lunch at 12:40. So there's just one more set of workshops, and then we'll do kind of a debrief at the end of the day. But enjoy your break. Take some time to re-energize. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Yes.
I'm wondering.
First, thank you for your comment early. I really appreciate it. Sorry I kind of had to pivot from it.
No, time is precious here, right? But I just had a question about the data because I noticed that they didn't mention making thinking explicit. They didn't mention analyzing student work together. And is it because the mentor teachers are not doing it, or they're not seeing it, or
At that
what's
exact
going on there?
Yeah. And it wasn't that they didn't mention it, it just wasn't one of the more common ones, but definitely analyzing student work. I don't think
Not there. That's a big black hole for us, period. Right? We're always trying to get them to, or, trying to get the supervisors to get the mentor teachers to analyze work together. They plan very well, they debrief very well, but boy, when it comes to looking at student work together and planning the next steps, they don't do that so well. So I'm just wondering, like, is that an oversight in general?
Well,
Not even seen it.
Yeah, I mean, to Lisa's point, just because it's not there doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means that for whatever reason it didn't make it the letter Y. Maybe because they don't value it, maybe because they don't think the judges will value it for the award. But the next step in this, and I think might be really interesting to ask. So we are planning on interviewing some of the mentors, particularly the ones who have been repeat nominated. And so I think maybe it would be useful to ask them about some of these things that aren't being brought up a lot in the letters to see if it is happening on their part and maybe it's just not being mentioned, or maybe it's like, I'm not doing this actually at all. In which case, that's a whole nother discussion.
So is this shared? Is the mentoring practices overview shared with the mentor teachers at all?
You mean like the 6 practices that we?
So if it's shared with them, they might intentionally do it. If it's not shared with them, then it's like,
right.
Then the students' voices are really being heard.
Yeah. So for new, that framework is part of our 10-hour training. So at least they presumably are introduced to those 6 practices and have an idea about them, and then in the single subjects, we have an orientation meeting each year, and in single subject we talk about it as part of our orientation meeting each year, the 6 practices anyways. So at least they should be familiar. I can't say any more than that.
Well, I think that's a good point, Evelyn. And it's something, I think as we're going into the year that we can be thinking about too. I know with multiple subjects, at least, if you are kind of an experienced mentor who has worked with us for a number of years, you're not going to that 10-hour site. And so you may not be aware of these 6. And so, Lisa, this is making me think how we might bring this forward in our orientation meetings when we have the triad meetings at the beginning, or even our resident teacher breakfast, just to share and get their perspectives. We had this conversation, Evelyn, about the analyzing, student thinking. And so again, exactly what Lisa and Matt said, we're not sure why. It could be a number of reasons. One theory that I was wondering about is sometimes there isn't the time to sit down and look through the student work together because our candidates frequently are racing off to campus. Unless it happens within the school day, there might be like a collaboration meeting. Those are times when I've heard that come forward, is like together with grade level teams, they're bringing together the student data, they're looking through it, and then they're thinking about next steps. But I'm curious about that as well. And I think, as Matt said, we're going to have these interviews with some of our teachers, and it would be really useful to hear their perspectives around all the practices, but that one in particular, I'm curious about.
Yeah, I think it's a black hole, period, because we were looking at the IM curriculum, and they have these great lessons, great strategies, great interventions, and the very end exit ticket. what do you do with that exit ticket? Is there a rubric? How are you analyzing student work based on that one exit ticket? What are you looking for? What are you listening for, right? What's the rubric criteria for building out what you're assessing? It's a black hole, period. So anyway, that would be a new research project.
Oh, something new to, yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
I appreciate your
Interesting you picked up. We were wondering if anyone would pick up on that. So you did. We're like, these are the things that didn't come up.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thanks for noticing, Evelyn. We couldn't cover it all, so I'm glad.
No, but great job. This is very interesting.
Oh,
Thank you for your
good.
talk.
Yeah, thanks. And we'll see you. And thanks for introducing Bettina again.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good lunch.
Bye.
Bye.